Hey everybody, this next video, is going to be, about domestic violence from a witchy perspective. And this is like probably the 10th time I've made this attempt because I just, wow. Um, I am a victim or survivor of domestic violence, and it took me years to actually be able to make this video. And I know that a lot of you who are on Temple of Our Lady of the Moon, both the group and the fan page, have been waiting for this one because I've been talking about it the past couple of days. And it took me a long time to get here, to put it out there like this. Um, a lot of people in my real life offline know about me and my experiences with domestic violence, but you guys out in Tubi Land and Facebook only have the slightest inkling of the depth and the level of the stuff that I am still working on from being a victim of domestic violence. And initially, when I started this topic, I wanted to get into some of the red flags about it, but unfortunately, there's just too many. So I decided to really get into the witchy part. And also, I don't have a whole lot of time for this video because some of the kids are going to be getting home from school in a few minutes, and I really, really want to get this out there to you guys. From a witchy perspective, a lot of witches tend to try to adhere to the harm none rule. But my question is, how can you adhere to the harm none if your life is threatened? Your abuser comes at you and punches you in the face. I mean, drags you across the floor, throws you against the wall, or, is in your all up in your Kool-Aid, as the saying goes, calling you all kinds of derogatory names. I mean, that's just like, how could anybody just stand there and take it from a witchy point of view? I mean, I know, all witchiness aside, I can't do it. And when you're faced with that kind of situation, being a witch, it's really hard to make that connection and remember, oh my goodness, I am a witch. I do have the power to take control of the situation and turn it into a positive. How do we initially do that? So, what do you do when you're faced with an abusive partner and mundane methods don't work? Okay. You break out the cards or the runes or whatever divination methods you use, throw the bones, as Silver Ravenwolf likes to call it, and see what the magical options are. And initially, when I started this, not only this video, but my whole entire odyssey from start to finish, from going from a victim to being a survivor, I really couldn't find any magical correspondences to correspond with domestic violence. So I had to sit there and pick domestic violence apart. Power, control, abuse, anger, rage. I had to go through all those and many more different bits and pieces of domestic violence and line it up with a corresponding color, oil, herb, goddess. And let me tell you, I can't tell you how many hours I spent writing all this stuff down. I mean, it was crazy. Nightmare. And at the time when I was going through it, I was depressed. I was really just out there. I was a walking zombie. I didn't want to eat anybody's face off, but I was a zombie. I was petrified that this guy was going to come home at any time and either explode and beat the crap out of me or just call me some stupid name or accuse me of doing something that I didn't do, whatever. And it was like, holy shit, do I really have to go through this stuff? Well, I guess I did. The goddess worketh in mysterious ways, right? And the reason why I had to go through all this, I believe is because she knew in her own infinite wisdom that I would be able to survive it and be able to share it with you. So I had to really sit there and check my correspondences for candles and all that stuff. And I came up with a powder and an oil called Vanishing Troublemaker oil or powder. And because he was in the Army National Guard and he'd be here and there, and sometimes he'd be coming home, I would sprinkle it in his shoes when he wasn't looking. I would put a little under the mat. I would wear the oil as a perfume whenever he did come home on leave. And surprisingly, the effect was pretty interesting. After a while, he became really sullen and withdrawn and didn't actually engage me in any kind of conversation or interact with me even on an abusive level. And when there was a time where I was in transition from I had moved down to Florida and I was in transition to come back. And I was coming back not to be with him per se, but to, have a place to go with my kids so I could find a job and get a place of my own because I couldn't find one in Florida. So that was a long trip and another whole topic in itself. So I would work with this oil and this powder, and I did find a job and I did get my own place. Unfortunately, it was with him. Wait for it. I had met my current life partner through a job that I had acquired. And him, my boss at the time, and a fellow employee were the ones who initially gave me the courage to call him up on the phone because I knew that he was there and ask him nicely, because I was not in a nice mood at the time, to leave. And he did. Surprisingly, he left voluntarily and peaceably. I want you to be aware that there were some slight repercussions, slight repercussions of the action afterwards, but for the most part, he did pretty much leave me alone. And I had to really sit down and be like, wow, I'm free. And when he first left, I was like, oh my God, I'm free. Oh my goddess, really? And it was so weird because I was in this huge apartment. My apartment was fairly large that I was living in at the time. And every single sound or shadow would set me off. I was actually petrified to be there by myself because I was afraid he was going to come back. And it took a long time for me to get over that feeling. It was horrible it's just horrible to allow somebody to have that much control, even though they're not there. I had to literally just meditate for hours and retrain my brain not to be afraid of myself by myself, if that makes any sense. Because the first few nights were just awful. I mean, we cannot, in all good consciousness, with any kind of common sense, allow anybody to have that much control over our lives. That is a horrible feeling to experience. And we have to also remember, we don't have to be afraid, and it's not our fault. It is not our fault that we fall victim. Domestic violence is not discriminatory. It doesn't care whether you're Hispanic, white, black, whatever. It doesn't care that you're Catholic, Christian, Wiccan, pagan. It don't care about any of that shit. It doesn't. And it can happen to anybody, anywhere, anytime. And we don't have to be afraid, and there is help. We just have to have the motivation and the courage to seek it. And bear in mind that the goddess did not create us to abuse each other. Okay? And once we set the magical wheels in motion, from personal experience, we can't take it back. I've been on this odyssey a long time. I know what I'm talking about. And when I first started to try to remove him magically from my life, it kept biting me in the ass. It kept coming back because I would take it back by giving him information, by telling him what I was doing in my life, by, just fighting with him over stupid crap. Never mind the fact that we have a son in common together. That didn't even matter to him. He just wanted to fight with me no matter what. So once I learned how to cut him off at the knees before he even started on a rampage, my spells actually started to work. So once we set the magical wheels in motion, we can't take it back, or else it's going to end up 10 times worse than it actually is. And in that case, that's where actual karma comes in. You have to be very clear and specific when doing spell work of this nature, because it will come up and bite you in the ass later on. So, the idea is to visualize, when you're doing a banishing like this, to visualize this person leaving. And remember too that by, giving them information about where you are, what you're doing, how you're feeling, you're giving this person a reason to stay. I know for a fact I don't need this guy to stay in my life because, it's just over. So this banishing troublemaker stuff, the oil and the herb, it really worked for me. But, if you're ever in this situation, or somebody who is, you have to really find what's going to work for them. And I really hope that this video helps somebody, because I wouldn't want to wish this on anyone. It's a very detrimental situation to be in. But if I can help somebody be aware of domestic violence and how to deal with it magically, then that's what I'm going to do. So, from me to you, blessed be.